Our story begins on Coruscant, just outside of the grand entrance to the Jedi Temple. The Sith Lord of the galaxy, Darth Plagueis, was here, not to conquer, not yet anyways. Instead, he was here today to become a Jedi, and begin his new game of patience. The idea of becoming a Jedi, while secretly being a Sith, entered Plagueis' mind about 5 years ago, shortly after the death of his master, Darth Tenebris. Plagueis had chosen not to save his master from death, instead he aided in killing him, as he thought he was ready to take on the mantle of becoming the one true Sith Lord. But over the years, Plagueis began to feel overwhelmed with the grand plan. He found that he didn't know as much about the Jedi as he would like in order to bring them down, and to kill an enemy, Plagueis knew that one must first fully understand them. He grew tired of being directly affiliated with the banking clan, and therefore, Plagueis would never end up on Naboo to find Palpatine, so he never found any sort of apprentice that he deemed worthy of training. So, Plagueis soon came up with an idea. He wanted to tear the Jedi apart from the inside. This would start with new Sith training. For roughly 5 years, Plagueis dedicated himself to masking his presence in the Force, but more so masking his darkness. He knew the Jedi rules. It was extremely unlikely he would be able to become one of their members, especially if they sensed even an inkling of darkness within him. So Plagueis spent these 5 years perfecting Force concealment, and like almost everything else he tried to do, Plagueis perfected it. The only power Plagueis could not perfect was the power to influence someone's midichlorians to create life. While he was the best user of this ability in the galaxy, he still had so much to learn, but perhaps the Jedi archives had some useful information for him. So, now we are here, around a decade after the death of Tenebris, as Plagueis fell to his knees outside the Coruscant Temple. He spent 5 years contemplating his path, 5 years training in this path, and now he was here calling out for help from the Jedi. The guards ran out, and Plagueis said that he needs help, as he has discovered a power within himself that has been dormant all of his life. It would be Grand Master Yoda who personally invited the man called Hago Damask inside of the temple, sitting the Mune down across from him to ask why he has come to the Jedi, and Damask would begin unraveling everything he knew. For all of his life, as a key member of the International Banking Clan, Damask has been beyond fascinated with the Jedi and the idea of the Force, but he never knew why. None of his peers were as much as him. It were as if something inside of him was just waiting to be awoken, and recently, he felt it for the first time. Damask unraveled all of it to Yoda, and Damask allowed the tiniest bit of the Force to be felt within himself, as he soon asked Yoda what it might take to become a Jedi. And at first, Yoda thought there was no way it could happen, but the more he talked with Damask, the more he thought an addition like him could be valuable to the Order. The two of them talked all evening long, and Yoda found that Damask has real experience with the galaxy outside of Coruscant, a galaxy that was growing further and further away from the Jedi and the Republic every day. Yoda found that Damask was extremely wise, kind, and already so fascinated about the Jedi. He had no dark emotions that Yoda could sense. He was over 100 years old, with all of this experience. Yoda didn't let him into the Order, but after a few days, and after speaking with council members, he would allow Damask to begin going on small missions with Jedi Masters to try and experience what it is the Jedi do. Yoda and other Jedi agreed that they'd become too cut off from the wider galaxy. Perhaps finding people in the galaxy with great influence and showing them the Jedi way is a good way to make the galaxy feel like the Jedi are still working for the people, rather than just the Senate. It was a worry that Yoda's former Padawan Dooku often expressed, and one Yoda was beginning to see as well. So, for months, Damask would observe Jedi missions, whether it was negotiations on Glee Anslem, a border dispute on Ordo Plutonia, a hostage crisis on Rhodia, and many others. Damask traveled with different Jedi Masters, observed their ways. One of these missions would bring Damask to the planet Yinchorr, and Damask would observe the lizard species that he learned was immune to Force powers that preyed on the mind. And so Damask would begin his long plan, beginning to develop a cloning genome of these lizard people. It would be a plan he would continue to pursue another day. But his main goal on these missions was making connections, and whether it was with Masters Windu, Dooku, Sifo Dyas, Mundi, Yarael Poof, Oppo Rancis, Damask would observe what each of these Jedi believed, and he would act like the perfect Jedi for many of these months, until many Jedi Masters believed the same thing. Damask could be a truly excellent Jedi with his calm nature, his experience outside of Coruscant, and his wisdom that showed in how quickly his Force abilities grew without any dark emotions rising. Damask made many friends, and eventually Yoda caved as well, allowing Damask to become a Jedi. If he were, say, 8 to 30 years old, it could have been different. His emotions could have easily got the best of him. But Damask has lived over a century in a calm life, the Jedi thought. If his dark emotions hadn't taken over by now, they should be safe. After all, Damask described his childhood as not exactly the most pleasant, so if those emotions didn't take over then why would they now? And so he would indeed become a Jedi Padawan of sorts, and Yoda, one of the Jedi older than Damask, would become his master now that he was no longer training Dooku. Yoda and Damask would train together for many years, and Damask would learn the ways of the Jedi. He would learn that there is no emotion, only peace, no ignorance, only knowledge, no passion, only serenity, harmony instead of chaos, and behind everything is the Force, which flows through all of them. It was a rather peaceful life as a Jedi, and eventually, Damask would go to Ilum, be gifted a blue lightsaber crystal. In reality, he stole this crystal from a dead Jedi on the planet Kofar, killed by an acolyte many years ago, but he would tell Yoda that the crystal showed him visions of his old life, fighting through the hardships of a tough family, and he was gifted this blue crystal. He would build his saber, and he would learn the ways of fighting as a Jedi under Master Yoda's training. But every night, as Plagueis was the only one awake in the temple, after having mastered the need for sleep, he would plan, whether it was for the next day, week, month, or even a decade ahead. Plagueis had grand plans worked out that would someday allow him to destroy the Jedi Order from the inside, and eventually, after Higo Damask was deemed worthy of becoming a Jedi Knight without Master Yoda, he would be alone on a mission with Jedi Master Mace Windu. The two of them were traveling to Namil to help settle a dispute between local monks and a Trandoshan group that recently appeared on the planet. Damask and Windu would investigate these Trandoshans for days, and they would learn that a local corporation hired them to terrorize the monks into needing to pay the corporation for their protection. It was corruption by the Da Corporation, and Windu and Damask would take off through a forest to confront them. But as they emerged in front of the DAA Corporation castle, Mace Windu felt something. A wave of suffocating darkness suddenly hit him, and he heard a lightsaber ignite behind him. Mace turned to see Higo Damask, but it wasn't him anymore. Not really. Damask's eyes were a dark orange color, and a small smile formed across his lips. To top it off, the lightsaber he ignited was blood red. Mace Windu was in shock. He never loved the idea of Damask being let into the Order, but he accepted it after spending a lot of time with him. Windu thought of Damask as a friend, but today he saw that he was the first victim of the revenge of the Sith. Mace would ignite his blade, and he would block a series of strikes from the Sith Lord Darth Plagueis, but the shock of this reveal would never allow Windu to recover in time, whereas Plagueis had waited years for this exact moment. He twisted Windu's saber out of his hand, then threw the Jedi Council Master hard into a tree. Windu tried to get up, but suddenly his throat began to close as he was lifted into the air. In a voice that was far more sinister than Windu ever heard, Plagueis thanked him for playing his role so well, helping him with all of this, and he snapped Windu's neck. And from here, Darth Plagueis would slaughter the Trandoshans, protecting the DAA Corporation, and he would break the minds of the corporate leaders, bending them to his will, forcing them to admit that they killed Mace Windu before Damask made them surrender to the planet of Namil. His job was done perfectly. This group claimed responsibility for killing Windu, and a council seat has been opened up. Hours later, Coruscant was raining heavily as Damask landed the Jedi ship at the hangar of the temple. Chancellor Valorum was here, with a saddened look on his face. On his sides were Yoda, Plo Koon, Depa Billaba, and the rest of the Jedi Council members, along with Dooku and Qui-Gon. Jedi Knight Higo Damask carried Mace Windu's wrapped-up body past the Jedi as they bowed their heads in honor. Windu was one of the most respected Jedi in the galaxy, and they could only hope Mace died fighting for the Republic and the Jedi Order that he loved so much. His funeral would be that night, and many senators and planet leaders that he helped through the years would come here. A beam of yellow light emerged from the grave, and Jedi Master Dooku looked over to Damask. Dooku wondered what he was feeling in this moment, and he looked into Damask's eyes as the yellow beam gave them an orange glint. Darth Plagueis had to resist cracking a smile, as he knew his plans would escalate quickly from here. After some time, Plo Koon would be promoted to the role of Council Master, replacing Mace Windu, and with Plo's seat open, a new vote would be held to determine who gets the seat. Qui-Gon, Dooku, Luminara, and a few others were considered, but in the end, it would be Hago Damask that was voted onto the council. The councilors agreed that his experience outside the Order was extremely valuable in these times, with opposition against the Republic rising. He could be an excellent negotiator, an excellent voice in council. Damask was honored, but deep down, this was no surprise. And from here, with Jedi trust truly gained, Damask could move into the shadows more than ever. He would quickly further his work on Kamino, where he was creating an army, but he was not using the Jango-fed genome. Darth Plagueis was creating an army of Yinchorr, a lizard humanoid species that could resist force powers on the mind. And these lizards were also extremely skilled in battle. It would be the perfect army to destroy the Jedi. Being a council member was vital to escalating these plans. Damask was able to delete Kamino from the archives, and he was also able to redirect any Jedi Knights that were going to Yinchorr, Kamino, or any of the surrounding systems to those planets. And being a council master allowed him to observe every Jedi in the Order. He had records of every youngling, Padawan, Knight, Master, everything he could ever need to bring down the Jedi in his hands. After years of playing the role of a wise Council Jedi Master, the clone army of Yinchorr lizard people was ready to be deployed. So, Damask would ask Yoda for some time away on a force retreat, which Yoda would grant, and Damask would instead travel to Kamino, where transport ships and thousands of Yinchorr were waiting. Plagueis would take these transport ships to the peaceful planet of Yinchorr, and on this planet, the Yinchorr people had built up a large amount of starships, tanks, heavy weaponry, as they were constantly fighting off pirates and slavers coming to their planet. But today, under the leadership of the Sith, the thousands of Yinchorr clones would land on the planet and spread into the cities of Yinchorr, killing every single native citizen to the planet. It would be one of the worst days for any planet in galactic history. In a matter of just a few days, with communications completely cut off out of the planet, all of the citizens that lived here in peace were wiped out, replaced with the clone army created by Plagueis. There would be no record of this, and the bodies would be placed into transports that would be blown up in distant mountains, leaving no trace of the atrocities that took place here. So Plagueis now had a planet full of Yinchorr clones under his command. Clones that were resistant to Jedi mind tricks, clones that were bred from warriors, and they would soon be the end of the Jedi. Plagueis was sure that no one suspected the old wise Jedi could be plotting the end of the Order and the takeover of the Republic. But there was one senator and one Jedi duo beginning to investigate this. Senator Palpatine of Naboo and Jedi Master Dooku had grown quite close over the years, and they had noticed some strange patterns surrounding Jedi Master Damask. Many years ago, as Palpatine was pursuing a career in politics, Dooku was on a mission to Naboo when he took a keen liking to the boy. He was ambitious, not afraid to admit there were real problems within the Republic. So, Dooku became a political mentor to young Palpatine, buying his father into early retirement and allowing Palpatine to thrive as he rose through the ranks to eventually become a senator for Naboo. Because Plagueis never found Palpatine, he never unlocked his powers in the Force, and instead put his anger and frustration into galactic politics. He wanted to help Naboo. He wanted to grow his family name. Dooku guided him through this until finally Palpatine became a senator. He wasn't exactly the greatest senator, wasn't exactly friendly to the Jedi, but he wasn't the worst either, and Palpatine was willing to bend some rules as senator. Most notably, he began investigating the plasma refinery here on Naboo. For as much plasma as the planet produced, they were not making nearly enough money off of it. A lot of it was being rerouted to planets and people who had no affiliation or loyalty to Naboo, but the files were secured by the International Banking Clan, so Palpatine and Dooku secretly worked together for weeks to gain access to these files, and what they found would be quite disturbing. Millions of galactic credits that should have been spread into Naboo were rerouted to Kamino? This made no sense, and so Senator Palpatine would request that Dooku investigate this further. Dooku, still having hope in the Jedi and the Republic, after meeting Palpatine over these years, would indeed investigate Kamino, and he would bring Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his 20-year-old Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, with him. The trio would go to Kamino together, and they would learn about the most recent clone army created by the Kaminoans. It was an army of Yinchorr people, so the trio of Jedi would continue their investigations by flying out to the planet Yinchorr, and upon arrival, the three of them would be welcomed to the planet by the Yinchorr citizens. and although something seemed off about it all, Dooku couldn't quite put his finger on it. He'd never been to this planet, but he quickly realized that, despite wearing different clothing, all of the lizard humanoids here looked exactly the same. They were clones, just like Kamino said. Dooku, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan got back onto their ship, contacted the Jedi Council with this information. But immediately after telling the Council, a knockout gas was thrown into the ship. The three Jedi put on their breathing masks, running outside, only to be quickly overwhelmed by the population here. The three Jedi were quickly knocked out and arrested, and when they arrived, the leader here, Rooklay, contacted Darth Plagueis. Plagueis purposely left a trail open on Kamino for Jedi to eventually discover. The three of them captured by the Yinchorr people, and on Coruscant, Yoda was forced to act. Yinchorr had always been a peaceful planet to the Republic and the Jedi, so they were allowed to build up with ships and weapons. But now, Yoda saw this was a mistake. This capture was a declaration of war against the Jedi. So Yoda was forced to put together a strike team of 250 Jedi Knights and Masters to go and get the captured trio back. Yoda planned to lead this mission. As for Master Damask, aka Darth Plagueis, everything was falling right into place. The powerful Jedi will go to Yinchorr, and they will be met with much more than they could ever expect. Thousands of Yinchorri clones, bred to kill Jedi, will wipe them out, and from there, Plagueis will be able to step into the Senate and claim that he infiltrated the Jedi Order years ago, learning the truth, that the Jedi are power-hungry, but they will be defeated on Yinchorr. Plagueis was once a heavily respected man in galactic politics. He will take over the Senate during this crisis, claiming to be the only one who knows the secrets of the Jedi and how to play politics. And he was still supposed to be on this meditation retreat, so he would not be asked to attend the invasion of Yinchorr. From the shadows of Coruscant, though, Darth Plagueis would watch a dozen Jedi transport ships rise into the sky, taking off to Yinchorr. Plagueis was convinced that all of the powerful Jedi were gone, and they would die on Yinchorr, allowing him to secure a Coruscant militia to take care of the much weaker Jedi remaining here in the temple. But Plagueis was not safe quite yet. In the executive building, Senator Palpatine secretly called Grandmaster Yoda into his senatorial office, and Palpatine explained all of the investigations that he and Dooku put into Master Damask, the banking clan, and the funds from the banking clan that went into creating the clone army. Palpatine essentially told Yoda that Damask is not who he thinks, and all of this is a setup by him. Yoda would realize he has been played for years. And back in the Jedi Temple, Darth Plagueis was alone in the Jedi Council, looking out upon the city that he would soon rule the galaxy from, painting the Jedi as terrorists trying to take the galaxy, when suddenly, the doors behind him slid open. Plagueis didn't have to turn to know who this was. He greeted Yoda with a voice laced with venom, and Yoda entered, igniting his green saber, telling Plagueis that his game ends today. Plagueis would pull out his red saber that had only been ignited one other time since joining the Jedi, and he told Yoda that killing him will be more enjoyable than killing Windu. Yoda said nothing more. He lunged first, spinning low, fast, striking at Plagueis' knees. The Sith Lord leaned back, one leg raised, countering with a downward slash meant to split Yoda's shoulder. Yoda deflected the blade mid-spin, jumping into the air, flipping behind him. Plagueis turned with perfect timing, blocking a backward strike, locking sabers with the Grand Master, and Plagueis let out a laugh that chilled Yoda's skin. Yoda pushed off a council chair, flipping high, landing a blow that seared Plagueis' robes. Plagueis responded with anger and a powerful force blast, shattering the council windows, throwing Yoda backwards. Wind howled into the chamber. Without hesitation, Plagueis charged, slashing again. Yoda ducked under, launching himself out of the window, using the force to slow his fall. The council was not the right environment for him. Plagueis followed. The two descended, blades clashing mid-air as they dropped alongside the tower of the Jedi Council. Sparks rained down the stone walls as sabers met again and again as they landed hard on the temple roof. Yoda rolled, coming up swinging. Plagueis stomped down, trying to knock Yoda off balance. The smaller Jedi dodged, and Plagueis responded, unleashing a surge of lightning. Yoda absorbed it with his palm, gritting his teeth, grounding the energy back into the stone roof, cracking it. Yoda leapt forward. Blades clashed again as Plagueis caught Yoda mid-air, hurling him through the skylight of the temple. Glass shattered as Yoda crashed hard into the archives below. His head was spinning as Plagueis followed with a thunderous landing. Shelves were toppled, data holocrons spilled across the floor, Jedi were scrambling away in fear. Yoda rose, panting, then charged again. He cut the legs of a support pillar to collapse debris onto Plagueis, but the Sith Lord caught it with the Force, hurling it aside. They clashed again near the central archives. Plagueis used the Force to yank books and holocrons off the shelves as weapons. Yoda sliced them away, but the distraction allowed Plagueis to punch him across the chamber. Yoda hit a column hard, head spinning, saber dropping to the floor. Plagueis moved forward, bringing the entire area down. Pillars snapped, balconies cracked, the heavy debris collapsed over Yoda's body. And buried beneath the rubble, Yoda could barely breathe. His vision was almost gone. He thought he was about to die, so he reached out into the Force, looking for answers. And across the stars, it was Dooku that felt Yoda. Their bond was ignited once more. Dooku told him he is not alone, that the Jedi on Yinchorr will stand. They will fight. Dooku told Yoda through the Force that he must end this for the fate of the galaxy. Yoda's fingers twitched. He closed his eyes. The Force poured into him one last time, a millennia of light. Every Jedi who stood before him was in him now. The stone burst outward. Yoda rose, cloak torn, face bloodied, lightsaber reignited. Plagueis turned, surprised for the first time in decades, and Yoda struck like lightning, ducking under Plagueis' swing, cutting deep into his leg. Plagueis staggered, slashing downward, but Yoda jumped up, slicing through the hilt of his blade. The saber flickered out. Plagueis growled, raising both hands and pouring lightning right at Yoda. Yoda caught the stream and forced it backwards. He took a step forward, then another, and Yoda yelled out and pushed the energy right back into him. Plagueis screamed as his body was lifted, consumed by the lightning. Yoda dashed forward, leapt, and drove his saber right into Plagueis' chest. The Sith Lord collapsed as the darkness would bleed out of him, and everything fell quiet as Yoda was victorious. But he gave everything he had. His bones were broken, head severely damaged, and the years caught up to him as the Force guided him for that final moment. And Yoda would fall dead right next to the Sith Lord, hoping the Jedi on Yinchorr could survive this day. And on Yinchorr, the battle raged across the dusty plains. 250 Jedi, the greatest warriors of their age, faced down a sea of Yinchorri clone soldiers. The lizard-like creatures charged in waves, thousands of them, armored, ruthless, bred for this moment. Their weapons tore through the air, cutting down Jedi left and right. Ki-Adi-Mundi would lead one flank, deflecting bolts, cutting a path through enemy lines, and he too would fall. Shakti twisted through clusters of enemies with her speed, but even she was heavily wounded, as friends fell dead all around her. Luminara's robes scorched, saber arms shaking from exhaustion after being hit with a blaster bolt. The Jedi held their ground, but barely, and even the rescued Dooku, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan, flanked by fallen Jedi, could feel the pressure crushing them. But then, something miraculous happened. Over the ridge, the people of the Republic would come. Farmers, laborers, security forces, senator aides. Thousands answered a call from Senator Palpatine to go and help the Jedi. They wore mismatched armor, arriving on all sorts of different transports, and they wielded everything from blasters to vibroblades, but their hearts were in the moment. They rushed down the hill, screaming with purpose, slamming into the Yinchorri lines. Side by side with the Jedi, they would fight together, ordinary citizens protecting the galaxy from a threat too large for the Jedi Order to face alone. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon stood atop a crushed tank, directing Jedi and citizens alike, while Dooku rallied both forces with impeccable poise. The clones began to fall, overwhelmed by the unity of the people and the Jedi. Smoke would rise as ships crashed and walkers fell. The last Yinchorri lines broke beneath the combined might of lightsabers and blasters, and by nightfall, the battle would end, and the Jedi stood, supported by the people they were sworn to protect. The Jedi had not only survived, they'd become one with the Republic in a way not seen for generations. The bond forged today would shape the future of the galaxy forever, and Yoda's funeral would draw Jedi and leaders from across the galaxy. His body laid to rest in the Jedi Temple. Dooku, Valorum, Palpatine, Qui-Gon, they all stood together, the light of the beam reflecting off their faces. The Order mourned its oldest master, but also prepared for change. When it was all over, Qui-Gon would be named as the next Grand Master, despite never serving on the Council. It was an idea proposed by Plo Koon, as his views on how the Jedi should live, despite being controversial, were now embraced as the Jedi way towards a more grounded and compassionate path. Dooku was happy for his former student, and he would go deeper into politics, guiding young politicians like Padme Amidala and helping the Republic recover without abandoning his Jedi identity. He saw real hope for the galaxy in this moment. Palpatine would remain on Naboo as the Senator, not seeking galactic power, but instead leading the planet into a new era of growth. He could sometimes feel the Force inside of him, but he wasn't interested in that. And so, with increased plasma trade and prosperity, Naboo was a symbol of peace and progress in the Republic. No longer driven by hidden ambition, Palpatine's leadership stabilized his world, and he would watch as someone from his own planet, Padme, would rise through the ranks and eventually become the Chancellor of the Republic. Meanwhile, far out in the outer rim of the galaxy over the years, the young Anakin Skywalker lived in obscurity. On Tatooine, after many years, he would lead a slave uprising that shattered Hutt control. It would be a legend told across the galaxy, and he vanished afterward with his mother. But among the freed, he was a name spoken like a hero without fear, as the galaxy thrived and expanded after the death of the Sith. And folks, that is our story for today. One that I enjoyed quite a lot. I put out a post yesterday. Yesterday, yeah. And I was like, what's an idea you've never seen done before? Most likes, I'll do it. No, it was 2 days ago. Whatever. But either way, the most liked one was like, what if Plagueis, was secretly infiltrated the Jedi? And I was like, that would be very cool. So I immediately started coming up with it. 24 hours, 48 hours, and yeah, this is the story. One that I really enjoyed. One that definitely stretches the bounds of, realism. A lot of this just wouldn't have. It'd be very difficult for the Jedi not to figure it out a little sooner, but I don't know. They were arrogant, so wanted to play with the Sith infiltrating the Jedi instead of infiltrating politics all the way. So hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.